mindfulness attitudes or approaches. We looked at non-judging, so if you missed that, you should be able to watch it here. It should pop up on the screen. Now, these attitudes that this guy, Jon Kabat Zinn, talks about, he's an American professor of medicine who was one of the people responsible for bringing mindfulness over from Eastern traditions and philosophies and incorporating it in more Western medicines. And he talks about these attitudes as being very important, not just for your formal mindfulness meditation practice, but for life in general. And that's one of the ways that I like to use them. If you are dedicated to the art of mindfulness, and I think that you probably have to be to read this book. It's dauntingly substantial. I would definitely recommend this book. But if that feels a little too much at the moment, I think you can just take these attitudes into your life, and they will help you to live a better life, a happier life, a calmer life, a more fulfilled life. Mindfulness is all about being present in the current moment, not allowing our minds to flit from the past to the future and back again, so that we miss what is happening now. And this can really improve our experience. But for many people, most importantly, it makes us feel much calmer and much more content. So, I'm going to maybe start by reading a bit about what Jon Kabat Zinn says about his attitudes. He probably puts it better. Before we do, I'm going to have a little sip of my tea. I've got some peppermint tea here. It's Tea Pigs. I like the Tea Pigs brand. They use whole leaves, so the tea is much stronger. I leave the tea bag in. I like it nice and strong. Peppermint has a lot of health benefits. It's very, very good for digestion, but it also can help you to sleep. So I like to begin the day with a cup and also end the day with a cup. Okay. So let's begin by looking at what Jon Kabat Zinn says about these mindfulness attitudes, and then I will read you his second attitude, which today is patience. The attitude with which you undertake the practice of paying attention and being present is crucial. It is the soil in which you will be cultivating your ability to calm your mind and to relax your body, to concentrate and see more clearly. If the attitudinal soil is depleted, that is, if your energy and commitment to practice are low, it will be hard to develop calmness and relaxation with any consistency. If the soil is really polluted, that is, if you are trying to force yourself to feel relaxed and demand of yourself that something happen, nothing will grow at all. And you will quickly conclude that meditation doesn't work. To cultivate meditative awareness requires an entirely new way of looking process of learning. And that's interesting because that raises why I think I like to read in an ASMR whisper. If you haven't watched my videos before, I often talk about how ASMR triggers a state a little bit like REM sleep, which is the state that we're in when we're dreaming. And in this state, our mind is primed for new information, for learning. So it's a good state to be in when you're learning about new concepts like this. It helps us to take them on board, to think about how we might use them in our day-to-day life. Okay, so let's look now at the second attitude. Okay, so the second attitude is patience. Patience is a form of wisdom. It demonstrates that we understand and accept the fact that sometimes things must unfold in their own time. A child may try to help a butterfly to emerge by breaking open its chrysalis. Usually, the butterfly doesn't benefit from this. Any adult knows that the butterfly can only emerge in its own time, that the process cannot be hurried. In the same way, we cultivate patience towards our own minds and bodies when practicing mindfulness. We intentionally remind ourselves that there is no need to be impatient with ourselves because we find the mind judging all the time, or because we are tense or agitated or frightened, or because we have been practicing for some time and nothing positive seems to have happened. We give ourselves room to have these experiences. Why? Because we are having them anyway. When they come up, they are our reality. They are part of our life, unfolding in this moment. So we treat ourselves as well as we would treat the butterfly. Why rush through some moments to get to other, better ones? After all, each one is your life in that moment. When you practice being with yourself in this way, you are bound to find that your mind has a mind of its own. We have already seen in chapter 1 that one of its favourite activities is to wander into the past and into the future and lose itself in thinking. Some of its thoughts are pleasant, others are painful and anxiety-producing. In either case, thinking itself exerts a strong pull on our awareness. Much of the time our thoughts overwhelm our perception of the present moment. They cause us to lose our connection to the present. Patience can be particularly helpful quality to invoke when the mind is agitated. It can help us to accept this wandering tendency of the mind, whilst reminding us that we don't have to get caught up in its travels. Practicing patience reminds us that we don't have to fill up our moments with activity and with more thinking in order for them to be rich. In fact, it helps us to remember that quite the opposite is true. To be patient is simply to be completely open to each moment, accepting it in full So hopefully